Hey everyone, and welcome back to another news alert. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and thank you so much for tuning into Boyd News. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel for more updates like this. And feel free to support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee. Links are in the description below the video. All right, so welcome to your Monday. We have a lot of information to cover in today's war news update. We've got huge news out of mainstream news outlet Bloomberg to start off with. Russian oil prices are completely collapsing due to U.S. sanctions going into effect soon in the coming days. On top of major Chinese and Indian refiners refusing Russian crude, it's not looking good for the Russian economy. Here's a new update for you here on your screen. It says Russian oil prices have fallen to nearly 3-year low amid U.S. sanctions. Russian oil prices have slid sharply as refiners in India and China pulled back from purchases ahead of U.S. sanctions deadline targeting state-controlled producers Rosneft and Lukoil. Okay, this is very big news, and apparently starting on November 21st, 2025 is when these sanctions from the United States onto major oil companies Rosneft and Lukoil in Russia will go into effect, and already just days before that deadline, oil prices in Russia are sliding heavily. I'm going to show you guys a report that talks about this, and it looks like Russia is going to be accruing some major losses here, potentially billions of dollars in losses once these sanctions go into effect. Also, other top headline news: Russia was hit with massive attacks by Ukraine overnight. Ukrainian drones struck an electrical substation in Russia's Ulyanovsk region, a defense plant in the Kursk region, a major thermal power plant in the Oryol region, and the occupied city of Donetsk in southeastern Ukraine was without electricity as electrical substations were being battered, knocking out power to surrounding areas near Donetsk city. We also have big information out of Poland as authorities are confirming a major act of sabotage to railways in the eastern side of the country near Ukraine's borders. Active investigations are ongoing, and Ukraine is claiming that Russia's GRU was responsible for this. This is Russia's intelligence directorate. So that's very big news. We'll talk about that story out of Poland today. And also, aside from that, big news regarding defense contracts being signed between Ukraine and France, and Greece will be helping to supply gas for Ukraine this winter. So lots of news, as you can see, to cover. Let's go ahead and jump right into this. We're actually going to start off with a mainstream news outlet from the Kiev Independent. This is directly out of Ukraine. And it says Russia's flagship oil price drops as buyers retreat ahead of U.S. sanctions. This coming out today, November 17th, 2025. You can see right here. The information reads Urals crude fell to $36.6 per barrel last week at the Russian port of Novorossiysk, its lowest level since early 2023, Bloomberg reported on November 17th, citing price assessments company Argus Media's data. The decline highlights the impact of the U.S. sanctions on Russian energy giants Rosneft and Lukoil, which warned foreign institutions they must end all transactions with the companies by November 21st. Discounts on Urals relative to Brent reached 23.5 per barrel, or $23.50 per barrel, the widest gap since June 2023. Before the sanctions, Urals typically traded at $12 to $13 below Brent in Russian ports. So look at that, guys, nearly doubled in discounts. That means that Russia's going to be losing a lot of money selling their oil to nations around the world. It says here the current discount has nearly doubled and is approaching the record set in early 2023 when Urals briefly fell $40 below Brent. Okay, so that's crazy, guys. So not quite at the highest levels, but very close, and could possibly exceed that if these sanctions really happen to take effect heavily on the Russian economy. And know that Russia produces majority of their income for their nation by the sale of oil. So if they can't sell oil at high prices, that means they're going to be taking huge losses for their nation, which is obviously going to affect the war in Ukraine. Finally, it says here the price drop in Russia's flagship oil reflects a widening loss of buyers in India and China. India's 5 largest refineries, which together bought about 1 million barrels per day from Russia, refused shipments scheduled to arrive after November 21st. China's state-owned Sinopec and PetroChina, along with independent refiners, also halted direct purchases from Rosneft and Lukoil. Bloomberg earlier reported that Russia's seaborne exports fell sharply in early November, marking the largest weekly decline since January 2024. With key buyers stepping back, Russia has increasingly left cargoes on tankers that now serve as floating storage. We've been hearing about that There's dozens, if not hundreds, of different of these shadow fleet tankers that are just sitting in waters all across the world because they can't drop off their oil at certain ports that are, obviously having to follow through with these sanctions onto Russia. So many of these tankers are just sitting, floating in areas around the world, and they can't drop off this oil. That's why it's talking about floating storage here. The shift reflects mounting pressure on Moscow's energy sector, which relies on discounted supplies to India, China, and Turkey to offset lost European demand and sustain export revenues. So, already before these sanctions go into effect, it is not looking good for the Russian economy. And I'm curious to see how much is going to affect Russia's war in Ukraine. If they don't have money, how are they going to fight this war? So, it's already not looking good. On top of that, we already know Russia's having a gasoline crisis over there, they're having shortages. Their economy is already collapsing right now. There's a lot of industries are on the brink of bankruptcy right now. Banks are on the brink of collapsing as well. Lots of huge news out of Russia. Let's go ahead and jump into X now. We're going to hop on over here to Drone Bomber. Let's talk about some of these strikes inside of Russia overnight that Ukraine was carrying out. It says approximate flight routes of our UAVs. The red arrow indicates the directions of strike UAVs. Blue arrow indicates the directions of jet-powered UAVs. All information about the routes is taken from Russia's sources. Okay, so it looks like we had regular UAVs that are powered by a propeller system that were attacking into Russia. And then on top of that, we had jet-powered UAVs as well. That's going to be these blue ones right here. Some of the major areas we're going to talk about is going to be the Ulyanovsk region over here next to Saratov and Samara regions, probably about 400 to 500 kilometers into Russian territory. We had reports of an electrical substation that has been hit over here. Fire maps were coming out indicating a major fire that broke out on that electrical substation over there. On top of that, the Oral region, the thermal power plant that's been attacked numerous times, came under attack again overnight. Then in the Kursk region down here, we have a defense plant connected to the Russian military that came under attack as well. And then down here in the Donetsk region, you can see Ukrainian drones were crossing through here. We had reports of multiple electrical substations being attacked, and the city of Donetsk and many surrounding cities like Makivka were without power overnight as Ukraine was completely destroying multiple electrical substations. So huge hits inside of Russia. Let's keep moving now. LX Summer 1, Ulyanovsk, Russia. Fire at the 500 kilovolt Veshkaima substation due to UAV attack. Governor Alexei Ruskik confirmed the attack and talked about the so-called debris. Power supply to the settlements is operating normally, he claims. However, satellite data from the NASA firm's service confirm a fire at the 500 kilovolt Veshkaima, substation. The substation was previously attacked on October 18th. So just about a month ago, this electrical substation came under attack. It looks like Ukraine went ahead and bombed it again overnight, most likely with at least one drone or more. You can see NASA fire maps were picking up a fire at that electrical substation, but apparently the governor of that region was claiming that there was debris that fell onto the site, but apparently power supply is still operating normally. We haven't heard of any power issues in those areas yet, but maybe that information will come out later. But otherwise, electrical substation coming under attack. Now, war translated in the Kursk region, drones visited the Zinkum plant, which produces zinc and chemical materials for military equipment, ammunition, and electronics of the Russian occupiers. Okay, so this plant directly connected to the Russian military in the Kursk region, just over the border from Ukraine's Sumy region. Here's a new video showing a huge fire that broke out, most likely a drone slamming into the plant. Take a look. All right, so it looks like more damage to yet another Russian defense plant. We can see a huge fire here, lots of flames coming out from the bottom, and smoke and fire over here in this area as well. Still waiting for more details on the extent of the damage here to this plant, but the fact that it's connected to the Russian military, we can see why Ukraine went ahead and struck this place. So huge damage there done to that facility. Now from Tendar, the thermal power plant in Oryol, Russia has been hit. All right, so I don't know how many times Ukraine has bombed this thermal power plant over here in Oryol. I want to say at least 3 or 4 times maybe over the last month or so. But it seems like about once a week, Ukraine is trying to destroy this thermal power plant. Looks like so far they've been unsuccessful in completely knocking it out because we're still seeing that the power is on in many of these areas over here. But apparently, this is a major thermal power plant that supplies power to a lot of these areas just a little bit south of Moscow. So apparently, this came under attack again overnight. If we get more details on that, I'll let you guys know. We could see some sort of smoke coming from that facility over there. Now, Tendar again, after Ukrainian strike, Russian occupied Donetsk lost all power. So take a look at this. I believe this is going to be one of the electrical substations nearby in the city of Donetsk down in southeastern Ukraine. This is going to be in the occupied territory held by the Russians. We had a huge fire that broke out over here. You can look here on the bottom. Looks like a lot of power knocked out. A few people do have power there, but a lot of these areas, it is lights out. I've got a video here also from NOAA Reports. Occupied Donetsk is in total blackout, with central areas also experiencing mobile internet outages. Power is also out in Yenikiev, Makivka, and Yasi Nuvada, if I'm saying those names right. Here's a video of somebody driving through near the city of Donetsk, and the power completely knocked out. Take a look at this. All right, so if anybody's wondering, if you're not familiar why Ukraine is going after electrical substations, this is due to the Russians doing the exact same thing inside of Ukraine. Lots of energy sites have been destroyed in Ukraine due to recent drone and missile attacks by the Russians. So this is just Ukraine responding in kind. And also, I would think this would slow down Russian military logistics flowing into Ukraine, as many of these areas are now without power. So this is a huge city in the Donetsk region that is currently without electricity. We'll wait for more details on that. If I get more information, if it's like a long-term power outage, I'll let you guys know. But it looks like as of last night, no power there. Now, Tendar again, Ukraine's primary unit conducted another round of successful deep strike operations, and in the process destroying valuable Russian assets. The following systems have been struck: a TOR M1 SAM system, a command post 55K6 from the S400 SAM system, and a 9S18 M1-3 radar from the Book M3 complex. Okay, so three different major systems here, all connected to air defense systems being destroyed. So a TOR M1, this is going to be a mobile command post that's for the S400 SAM system, and then this radar for the Book M3 air defense system as well. So we've got a video here from Primary. This is one of the units out of Ukraine, and they posted some of these drone attacks onto these positions, taking out these systems. So I believe this first one we're looking at here is going to be that TOR system that's sitting right here on the top of this hill. You can see. Then bam, this drone crashes right into it, most likely destroying it or catching it on fire. This looks like that mobile command system for the S400 system as well. Then we've got this mobile radar here also that came under attack, completely destroyed. I'm not sure exactly where these hits were taking place at. Most likely southern Ukraine is usually where these details come out from, but right now don't have any information. But we do know multiple major air defense systems or complexes for radars were hit recently. Now, Vicegrad 24, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk says a sabotage attack has damaged a railway line leading to Ukraine. And it says, quote, "Unfortunately, the worst assumptions have been confirmed. An act of sabotage occurred on the Warsaw-Lublin route," Tusk said. He added that another instance of damage was recorded on the same line. Yeah, there was actually 3 recorded sabotage attacks. So is this Russia doing this? You guys can let me know what you think. I mean, I wouldn't see why this wouldn't be Russia, right? But clearly they are investigating right now. Here's Donald Tusk, the prime minister, on site of one of these trains that were stopped. We have multiple instances, to talk about here. Definitely one of these train tracks were destroyed. There was explosives that were planted. We'll talk about that, and then numerous other incidences also. So Vicegrad 24, Tusk confirmed that an explosive device detonated near the village of Mika, destroying a section of the railway line. It says, quote, "Blowing up the rail track on the Warsaw-Lublin route is an unprecedented act of sabotage, targeting directly the security of the Polish state and its civilians. This route is also crucially important for delivering aid to Ukraine. We will catch the perpetrators, whoever they are," Tusk wrote. Another damaged area was found closer to Lublin. Interior Minister Marcin Kuriwinski, if I'm saying that right, said there was no doubt this was an act of sabotage. So here's a picture coming out showing one of these rail tracks that were blown up. So imagine, not only is there military logistics coming from Warsaw down to Lublin, down in southeastern Poland, close to the border of Ukraine, but also we have civilians that travel by train on these tracks also. So imagine if this would have caused a major derailment. Lots of people could have been injured, maybe even losing their lives in this incident. Yes, this is a very major act of sabotage here with this train. We've got more information on some other sabotage acts here now, too. From next, a third act of sabotage on Poland's railway. A metal plate with a smartphone was found on the tracks. Another suspicious device has been discovered on the Warsaw-Lublin line. So this is going to be the same exact railway tracks. And it says near the Polway Azoty station, patrol teams found a metal plate bolted directly onto the rail a few dozen meters away. A smartphone was attached to a sleeper with wires. The information comes from, I'm going to struggle to pronounce this, I think it's Dispozitura Trakzik. Sorry, I might be butchering the name of that, a channel that monitors railway incidents. This is already the third incident on the same line on Sunday evening near the Polway station. The overhead power line was also damaged. A high-speed train had to make an emergency stop. The locomotive's pantograph was broken. 3 windows in one of the carriages were shattered. So take a look at that, guys. Multiple acts of sabotage here. We got a smartphone with possibly some sort of detonation device found on one of these trains as well. Our train tracks, excuse me. And then on top of that, we had power lines being damaged. And it talks about a locomotive's pantograph. That's basically the little connector that sits on top of the electric trains that attaches to the power lines that allows them to power the train. Apparently that got damaged, and 3 windows of the carriage were also shattered. So this is crazy what's happening inside of Poland. I'll probably be doing more updates on this today. There's lots of information coming out on this story. Very wild what we're seeing here inside of Poland. And, we have seen acts of aggression onto Poland before. Do you guys remember just a couple of months back when Russia launched a bunch of drones into Poland? I think somewhere around 23 or so confirmed drones were flying into Poland, crashing all over the place, many of them having to be shot down by NATO allied forces. So this is pretty wild. I will continue to follow that story and give you guys more updates. Insane story there. Then check this out. Vicegrad24, Ukraine says Russian GRU behind sabotage on Polish railway. The explosions on the railway between Warsaw and Lublin are typical sabotage operations carried out by Russia's GRU Unit 29155. According to Andriy Kovalenko, head of Ukraine's Center for Countering Disinformation, says, quote, "This is a sabotage unit of the Russian GRU responsible for operations abroad. NATO countries are among its top targets," Kovalenko explained. So here's some more looks at these train tracks, like this photo we saw earlier. Then this one also, we could see some sort of line that was run right below these tracks. Not sure if that was used in possibly detonated these tracks here, but it looks like that's what we're seeing there in that photo. So again, crazy news, guys. Ukraine believes that this is Russia behind this. Let me know if you agree with Ukraine. Now, United 24 Media, Ukraine is moving to massively boost its air power with a major French jet purchase. Zelensky told France's LCI that Kiev will order 100 Rafale fighters to strengthen its defense against Russia's war, Reuters reports. Okay, this is very big news, and here's a picture of Volodymyr Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, alongside French President Emmanuel Macron as they signed this historic deal for 100 Rafale fighter jets for Ukraine. Now, I am hearing that it could take until 2035 before Ukraine either starts receiving any of these or before all 100 are completely delivered. So I'm not sure when Ukraine is actually going to start receiving even just one of these systems. Going to be this Rafale fighter jet right here in the background. So I'm sure that might upset some people. Some people might say, hey, Ukraine needs these now, not 10 years from now. But it is going to take some time, just like what we heard about the Gripen fighter jets for Sweden. That's going to take some time as well. But nonetheless, Ukraine going to be getting a huge upgrade here with its Air Force. And they're also going to be getting other types of weapons through this deal also, and air defense systems. And we'll talk about that. Here's more information. You're getting on it. Ukraine will receive 8 SAMP-T air defense systems from France, Zelensky said at a press conference in Paris. Further statements by the Ukrainian president. Ukraine and France have signed an agreement for the delivery of 55 electric locomotives to significantly strengthen logistics. That's great because we know a lot of trains are destroyed inside of Ukraine. This is a strategic agreement that will be in effect for 10 years starting next year. I will not disclose all the details of the defense agreement between Ukraine and France. Releasing such information could pose a risk to both us and our partners. We can only discuss specific types of weapons once they are already deployed on the front lines and fulfilling their mission. Okay, so yeah, maybe could Ukraine receive these Rafales sooner? Maybe a handful of them in the near term, maybe over the next year or so. I'm not really sure yet. We'll have to wait and see. They are disclosing a lot of information, or withholding a lot of information, that is, excuse me, at this time, and I guess we won't really know until we start to see these things showing up on the front line. So nonetheless, guys, a huge historic deal has been signed. Here's more information. Ukrainian Review. Macron says since May 2025, Ukraine has demonstrated a desire to end the war while Russia continues to refuse negotiations. Russia's attacks on Ukrainian energy and civilian infrastructure only highlight the cynicism of Russia's position. No one believes Russia's claims that it wants peace anymore. In 2026, new defense systems may be deployed on Ukrainian territory. So that's an interesting statement right there in the end. Okay, in 2026, starting next year, he says new defense systems. Okay, so most likely, I'm assuming these air defense systems, maybe some of the other heavy weaponry that's going to be given over to Ukraine. And then on top of that, could we see some of these Rafale fighters going to Ukraine? We'll have to see what's going to happen. But he said new defense systems may be deployed next year, so we'll see how that goes. Now, military news UA. Zelensky and Macron visited the headquarters of the multinational forces of the Coalition of the Willing. The headquarters of the forces, led by France and the United Kingdom, began operations in Paris several weeks ago. It is engaged in planning the deployment of multinational peacekeeping forces in Ukraine after a peace agreement is reached. So this was Volodymyr Zelensky and Emmanuel Macron as they met at the headquarters for the Coalition of the Willing. And yeah, just more updates here regarding whether we're going to see peacekeeping troops inside of Ukraine. It looks like the Coalition of the Willing is still open to doing that. And we had Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky meeting here with the French President Emmanuel Macron to discuss those details. Okay, so we should be seeing that still happening in the future if we get a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. Now, from Timothy Milovanov, if I'm saying his name right, good news for Ukrainians ahead of winter. Zelensky says gas supplies from Greece will begin in January. We will be able to receive not only natural gas from Greece, but to obtain energy from the U.S. through Greece's infrastructure. Okay, so great to hear. We know that gas supplies are going to be in short for Ukraine, so Greece is going to be helping out with that, utilizing a pipeline that comes from the Balkans over to Ukraine. So we're going to show you a map on that right now. Actually pull this up. So it kind of runs through Bulgaria, I believe, and then through Romania into Ukraine's southern side down here. So I wouldn't be surprised we start to see a lot of attacks from the Russians targeting these areas. We did have actually a story to show you here in just a minute. We had a tanker that was actually attacked carrying liquefied natural gas very close here to the border of Romania near the city of Plaru, or the settlement of Plaru, which has been attacked by Russian drones before inside of Romania. So we'll discuss that in a minute. But yeah, apparently this route here is going to be transferring natural gas into Ukraine. Some of that will be coming directly from Greece, and then others will be coming from the United States. So that is great to hear that Ukraine was able to secure some deals to get gas for the winter. As we know, a lot of their power is being destroyed over there by Russian strikes. So that was just a map to show you. Now let's move on to next. During a nighttime Russian attack on Ismail in the Odessa region, a Turkish liquefied gas vessel was damaged, Euronews reports. Romanian authorities are evacuating residents of a nearby village due to the risk of the explosion. So this is going to be, I believe, the Danube River right here, which separates Ukraine from Romania. And apparently we have the port of Ismail coming under attack, which is not far away from Romania. And some people having to be evacuated in these areas due to this ship coming under attack. So it was carrying liquefied natural gas, and it looks like the Russians tried to bomb this port, or maybe they tried to strike this actual vessel directly. As you know, as we just reported right now, Ukraine's going to be receiving a lot of gas coming from Greece and the United States. So like I mentioned, I think we're going to see a lot of strikes over here. So I'm not sure if this ship had blown up or anything like that. I'm still waiting for more details, but as you can see there, huge fire broke out after a Russian drone attack. Now, Kiev Post. Putin's forces struck a residential area in Balaklia, Kharkiv region, killing at least 3 civilians and injuring 13, including 4 children. Rescue efforts are still ongoing. The death toll may rise. Yeah, very sad news coming out from Kharkiv today. Mainstream news picking up this story. This high rise residential building got struck by what looks like a Russian drone. And we've got firefighters here on the scene to put out the blaze. And we had three people losing their lives, unfortunately, including 13, and four of them being children, were injured in this attack. Very, very sad news. Just wanted to share that with you, let you know what the Russians are still doing to Ukrainian civilians. Now, Maria Drutska, some people in the Kremlin are having a terrible morning. Trump announced that a bill very severely sanctioning countries which trade with Russia is being prepared and that it was his suggestion. The last round of U.S. sanctions had a major impact. These could be even bigger. Yeah, take a look at this. Here's a picture of Trump last night speaking to reporters. It says U.S. lawmakers drafting sanctions bill targeting countries doing business with Russia, Trump says. U.S. President Donald Trump said on November 16th that congressional Republicans are preparing legislation that would impose sanctions on any country doing business with Russia. I wonder if this is that same bill that U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham was coming out with. If you guys remember back towards around March of this year, he was announcing trying to push a bill through Congress. If it gets passed, would introduce 500% sanctions onto any countries that are purchasing oil with Russia. So now he's talking about any countries doing business with Russia in general, I would assume, is going to be potentially hit by sanctions also. So this could be another round of a huge double whammy slam down into the Russian economy. And we'll see if this gets passed or what's going to happen with this. I'll follow this story very closely. This could be very big if the Trump administration moves forward with this inside of Congress. Now, Bliskovka, the Russian port Novorossiysk, resumed oil loading after the Ukrainian attack. According to Reuters, the ports in the Caspian Pipeline Consortium terminal were idle for 2 days, stopping the export of 2.2 million barrels of oil per day, about 2% of global supplies. According to LSEG data, two tankers are now loading again at the berths, while the recent pause caused global oil prices to rise more than 2%. Okay, so what we're hearing from Reuters today is the port of Novorossiysk is back open for oil exports. Okay, so even though Ukraine went ahead and completely destroyed this port a few days ago, it looks like the Russians got everything repaired and it's back online right now. So get ready for probably another major attack on the ports of Novorossiysk. I wouldn't be surprised Ukraine tries to bomb it again and probably utilize more missiles like the Neptune cruise missile that allegedly struck this port. And we heard that maybe even some air defense systems could have been destroyed over here as well. Now, Max 25. The Russians have placed 137 trucks of unknown purpose at the Angles 2 air base, according to Military. The purpose of this accumulation is currently unknown. Most likely, the trucks are related to the transportation of weapons for the Russian strategic aviation. Yeah, that's immediately what I thought when I heard about this story. Mainstream news also talking about this today, that 137 trucks being spotted on the airfield over here. So why would they all be showing up here? I'm thinking there's going to be some sort of major operation where they're going to be transferring a lot of heavy weaponry over here, maybe lots of missiles or bombs or anything like that for these strategic aircraft to deploy onto Ukraine. Are we about to see a major bombing campaign onto Ukraine? I think that could be the likely scenario here. If not, let me know what you guys think. Why do you think all these vehicles are showing up at this airfield? Especially these are trucks, so most likely used for the transportation of something. I wonder if they're even going to be evacuated this airfield. I don't really know yet what's going to happen, but still waiting for more details on that. Let me know. Speculate down below what you think is going on with that. Now, Max 25, a new type of Shahed 101 is increasingly being used in frontline zones, according to Flash. This UAV has not yet been fully studied. However, it is already known that it has a warhead weighing 8 to 9 kilograms and a range of several hundred kilometers. So a new type of drone being found. I guess they're calling this the Shahed 101, excuse me. A new type of drone being located inside of Ukraine, deployed against the Ukrainians coming from Russia. Definitely an interesting looking drone. We haven't seen anything like this before. Kind of looks like somewhat like the rocket drones that Ukraine uses. A very slim type of design here, but it looks like it did have a propeller driven motor here on the back. So nothing super advanced, but nonetheless, some type of new drone being found inside of Ukraine that the Russians are now deploying. Now, Max 25, Ukrainian air defense shot down 91 out of 128 drones. 0 out of 2 Iskander-M ballistic missiles, 32 strike UAVs were recorded at 15 locations, as well as 2 ballistic missiles at 2 locations. Okay, so we did have 2 ballistic missiles being fired on Ukraine overnight. Looks like they were not shot down, but 91 out of 128 drones were destroyed or suppressed by electronic warfare. That's pretty good numbers coming out from Ukraine overnight. We have been seeing that, and I expect these numbers to be increasing over time in terms of the higher percentage of these drones being knocked out of the skies. As we know, Ukraine is starting to deploy more of these interceptor drones on the battlefield. So good numbers there. Now, our final update from the Kyiv Independent. These are the indicative estimates of Russia's combat losses as of November 17th, according to the Armed Forces of Ukraine. And it says Russia's losses as of November 17th: 1,160 troops, 3 AFVs, 72 vehicles and fuel tanks, 2 tanks, 17 artillery systems, 213 UAVs, 1 MLRS, 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems. So I feel like we've been seeing 2 of these air defense systems being wiped out almost every single day. That's really good to see because these things are expensive, huge losses for the Russian military. Multiple launch rocket system once again being destroyed. We usually see about 1 or 2 of these on average per day. 17 artillery systems, these numbers down a little bit. Usually seeing more 30 to 40 in this range here. Tanks and AFVs, very low numbers today. 72 vehicles and fuel tanks, I'd say about average. We've been seeing about 75 or so per day in that category. And then troop numbers up a little bit today also. We've been seeing more around 1,000 to 900, still sitting above 1,000 today, sitting at 1,160. So guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in for today's update on November 17th, 2025. Hope you all have a great Monday out there. Thanks so much again for tuning in. Let me know what you think about all these details down below in the comment section. That's going to be it for today's update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell. That way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless. And we'll see you in the next one.